Let's start to study about kinds of ELT syllabus. What is syllabus? A syllabus is an expression of opinion on the nature of language in learning. It acts as a guide for both teacher and learner by providing some goals to be attained. Hutchinson and Waters in 1987 defined syllabus as at its simplest level. A syllabus can be described as a statement of what is to be learned. It reflects language and linguistic performance. This is a rather traditional interpretation of syllabus, focusing it on outcomes rather than on process. However, a syllabus can also be seen as a summary of the content to which learners will be exposed. It is seen as an approximation of what will be taught and that it cannot accurately predict what will be learned. Types of syllabus. Although there are seven different types of language teaching syllabi which are purely in practice. The types rarely occur independently but depend on each other. Almost all actual language teaching syllabi are combination of two or more types. Number one type is to be called structural or formal syllabus. The content of language teaching is a collection of the forms and structures, usually grammatical, of the language being taught. Examples include nouns, verbs, adjectives, statements, questions, subordinate clauses, and so on. Issue and criticism. One problem facing the syllabus designer pursuing a grammatical order to sequencing input is that the ties connecting the structural items may be rather weak. A more fundamental criticism is that the grammatical syllabus focuses on only one aspect of language, grammar. However, in truth, there exist many more aspects to be considered in language. Recent corpus-based research suggests there is a divergence between the grammar of the spoken and of the written language, raising implications for the grading of content in grammar-based syllabuses. The second type of syllabus is a notional or functional syllabus. The content of the language teaching is a collection of the functions that are performed when language is used, or of the notions that a language is used to express. Examples of the functions include informing, agreeing, apologizing, requesting. Examples of notions include age, size, color, comparison, time, and so on. There are various issues or criticism on this type. In order to establish objectives, the needs of the learners will have to be analyzed by the various types of communication in which the learner has to confer. Consequently, need analysis has an association with notional or functional syllabuses. Although needs analysis implies a focus on the learner, critics of this approach suggest that a new list has replaced the old one. Where once structural or situational items were used, a new list consisting of notions and functions has become the main focus in syllabus. Language functions do not usually occur in isolation, and there are also difficulties in selecting and grading function and format. Clearly, the task of deciding whether a given function that is persuading is easier or more difficult than another that is approving makes the task harder to approach. The third type is situational syllabus. The content of language teaching is a collection of real or imaginary situations in which language occurs or is used. A situation usually involves several participants who are engaged in some activity in a specific meeting. The language occurring in the situation involves a number of functions combined into a plausible segment of discourse. The primary purpose of a situational language teaching syllabus is to teach the language that occurs in the specific situations. Examples of the situations include seeing the dentist. For example, complaining to the landlord, buying a book, meeting a new student, and so on. Number 4 type is a skill-based syllabus. The content of the language teaching is a collection of specific abilities that may play a part, usually language. Skills are things that people must be able to do to be competent in a language, relatively independent of the situation or setting in which the language used can occur, while the situational syllabi group functions together into specific settings of the language used. Skill-based syllabi group linguistic competencies, pronunciation, vocabulary, grammar, and discourse together into generalized types of behavior, such as listening to spoken language for main idea, writing well-formed paragraphs, giving effective oral presentation, and so on. The primary purpose of the skill-based instruction is to learn specific language skills. A possible secondary purpose is to develop more general competencies in language learning only incidentally any information that may be available while applying the language skills. Number 4 type is a task-based syllabus. The content of the teaching is a series of complex and purposeful tasks that the student wants to need to perform with the language they are learning. The tasks are defined as activities with a purpose other than language learning, but in the content-based syllabus, the performance of the task is approached in a way intended to develop second language ability. Tasks integrate language and other skills in specific settings of the language. Task-based teaching differs from situational-based teaching in that while situational teaching has the goal of teaching the specific language content that occurs in the situation, predefined products, task-based teaching has the goal of teaching students to draw on resources to complete some piece of work, a process. The student draw on a variety of language forms, functions, and skills, often in an individual and unpredictable way in completing the task. Tasks can be used for language learning are generally tasks that the learners actually have to perform in real life. Examples include applying for a job, talking with a social worker, getting housing information over the telephone, and so on. Number 6 type is a content-based syllabus. The primary purpose of the instruction is to teach some content or information using the language that the students are also learning. The students are simultaneously language students and students of whatever content is being taught. The subject matter is primary and the language learning occurs incidentally to the content language. The content teaching is not organized around the language teaching, but vice versa. Content-based language teaching is concerned with information, while task-based language teaching is concerned with communicative and cognitive processes. An example of content-based language teaching is a science class taught in the language the student need or want to learn, possibly with linguistic adjustment to make science more comprehensible. The last type is lexical syllabus. Proposed by Willie in 1990, it is based on the most common words and phrases, including their meanings. Real language research into natural language instead of other pedagogic grammar is being used. It shifts responsibility of learning on learners. That's all.